Today, we are reading some truly awful confessions from r/confessions. So let's get right into them. Our first story is from Crew Quiet. I'm married, and I just met someone I feel super attracted to. I've been married for 9 years. We've been together for 19 years, since we were 15 years old. I go social ballroom dancing. You dance with almost everybody. But I met someone there, and I feel this crazy chemistry. In all of my years with my husband, I have never felt this way with anyone else. There was once a boy in high school I kind of felt this chemistry with. I don't even want to get to know this guy, but every time we dance, I feel sparks. But I don't want to do anything with him since I'm married. He is not even that objectively super good looking. All right, I don't know why we're dogging on this poor guy. We don't dance excessively with each other. He knows I'm married. I have no idea if he feels it too, but I think about the sparks I feel when we dance together, probably way too much, literally feeling like a teenager with a crush. All right, starting right out here, this one's not too crazy, but it's kind of gross, kind of sad. But I would say, obviously, victim blaming, not a good thing. But if you don't feel any chemistry or sparks with your husband, then maybe he's being lazy. Maybe he's not trying to do things with you, making any effort, which that's sad, but it happens a lot. But, maybe you're also not doing it. It's a two-way street in relationships. Or it could be that you have just fallen out of love and you need to move on and try to find somebody else that you can feel a spark with. Let's read the top comment here. I have been single pretty much forever, but I met one guy that I had the most amazing chemistry with. That was like 7 years ago. We started dating and I was like, that's it. I've met my soulmate. All my niche humor, books, podcasts, and music, he was the same. After a few weeks, I showed his picture to a coworker who dropped a bomb. Oh, that's my cousin's husband. They just bought a dog. And I realized that although we had so much chemistry, I had no idea who he actually was. He is a liar, a lowlife, living a double life. He's perfectly happy doing that. And he told me he had cheated on his wife 5 times. Turns out, though, he met his current wife because she was best friends with his ex-fiancée. They had an affair and eloped, and he was miserable and would cheat to pass time. Overall, loser. Chemistry is just chemistry. It does not mean you know the person or would make it in a real relationship. That is very true. You might feel sparks, but a lot of that is just the excitement of someone or something new. And what you really should be doing is going to your current relationship and trying to see what you can do to spice things up, make things a little more interesting. I'm talking like I know what I'm talking about. I definitely don't. I'm basically just repeating and regurgitating things that I've heard other people say. Will I put them into practice? Probably not. All right, I'm not going to cheat. Obviously, I don't really date anymore. That's why I'm not going to put it into practice, most likely. Anyway, we are going to get into our next confession, and things get quite a bit darker as we go. Next one is from Monkey77. I was about to kill my sister-in-law and her boyfriend. My sister-in-law got evicted, and she was going to be homeless because of her bad financial situation, so we opened our home to her. We had not even lived together for even a month at that point. Imagine my shock when she broke every rule. Didn't shower, ate our food, brought her boyfriend over, who we didn't know, and when called out on it, she called my girlfriend, a B, and told her to shut the F up, slammed our door, and talked about us to their mom for 2 hours screaming. So I told my girlfriend that she needs to kick her sister out. She did. It took her 3 days from entering our home to having to leave. Man, she really speed ran her second eviction, gosh. The day comes. We tell her she needs her stuff out by 2 p.m. It's 4 p.m. and she's not here, so I take her stuff and put it outside. They come an hour later, livid. I assume they're meaning the sister-in-law and her boyfriend. They come back an hour later, livid, but quietly pick up the things from the curb. At this point, their parents were actually over at our house to meet our new kitten. When she realized the parents were there and she had an audience, all hell broke loose. She slammed on our door in anger. My girlfriend opened it and she proceeded to shout and argue. Her boyfriend was right behind her. Now, before I tell you this next part, my girlfriend and her sisters lived life shielded from the outside world. I, on the other hand, lived the opposite life. I grew up in the streets of St. Louis. I was never a thug. I'm a pretty nerdy guy. I just didn't have a choice. I came from complete poverty and needed to be tough to survive. I have had my fair share of life or death situations. I've lost lots of people. I'm happy I escaped. But as they argued, she held our door open and she slapped my girlfriend. At this point, I was taking a back seat, but I got up, gun in pocket. Man, he's already strapped, and was about to put both her and her boyfriend into a closed casket. All right, man, you might be overreacting over a slap. The dad notices and runs to get his daughter. We close the door and she cried like a pathetic B-word outside our locked house. I realized I don't need to have that mindset I used to, and I was about to mess up my entire life for a homeless idiot. Got rid of my gun and got into therapy. To this day, only my therapist knows. And now the whole internet. Edit. I wasn't angry over just a slap. These individuals invaded our home, assaulted my fiance, and all we did was try to help her. That's what was going to get them killed. All right, killing someone over a slap, still, even with that edit, and saying they invaded our home. I mean, you let her move in, and now you're arguing. Just call the police, get them out of there. You don't need to ruin your life, ruin other people's lives over a heated argument. That's kind of insane that your first reaction is to get out your gun. Like, my thought for getting out a weapon like that is if someone comes in, trying to kill me and my family, and is some strange random person coming trying to end lives, that's when I might start to consider maybe I need to get out a weapon or something. But family slapping each other, come on, just call the cops. Man, I'm glad that he's going to get therapy and that he got rid of the gun, because obviously he is a little too trigger happy. Our next story is from South Amphibian 7781. A friend admitted to a gruesome murder during a rave while high. A year or so ago, I met this guy at a rave in the UK, introduced to him by a mutual friend. We will call the mutual friend Jim and the man in question Joe. Now, Joe had trained in boxing for a while, like myself, so we had a sense of respect for each other instantly. Over the next few months, I'd see him at other raves, and gradually, of course, he became a little more than just a random acquaintance. Usually, he would attend with Jim, so there was often a natural inclination to go up and speak to them. At one particular event, at the end of last year, I saw Jim and asked why he wasn't with Joe at this event. It was quite unusual for them not to be together. He had told me they were no longer friends, and he wanted to distance himself as much as possible because of some sort of serious situation Joe had gotten himself into. He didn't share more, and it seemed like the wrong place to start investigating, so I just brushed it off. Then, in February 2026, I went to a rave and saw Joe, at which point he was heavily under the influence of a cocktail of drugs, probably K, M, and alcohol at least. We briefly spoke, the standard, "y'all right?" convo. Then I mentioned that I was aware he and Jim were no longer friends. At this point, he glanced at me with a disoriented stare that seemed to go right through me. He mentioned that most of his friends wanted nothing to do with him anymore because he had killed somebody. At this point, I laugh it off as some sort of joke. He grabbed me by the shoulders and said he was dead serious. But even then, I just couldn't believe it. This part of the venue wasn't too loud, so I could very easily hear what he was saying. Then he began going into grave detail of how it played out. He received a call from his mother, who was walking home late at night from a pub alone. I believe she was at a work party. There was a man who was following her home, and he crossed the road exactly when she did in a suspicious manner, more than once. Joe said that when she called him terrified, he and his brother went out in their company work van to sort the situation out. When they arrived, the man was still following and was seemingly not fazed by their presence. They grabbed this man and put him into the van. I'm not sure what happened with his mother after that point. Joe then proceeded to torture him in the back of the van while his brother drove, beating him with a hammer and questioning him. They drove to a wooded area and initially didn't plan on killing him, but after beating him brutally for the journey, they decided letting him go at this point was too risky. They used work tools to kill and partially dismember him in the back, then buried him in a very specific forest, of which the name I knew. The story was so descriptive and fluid that it actually shook me. After this, I'm sure he could see some discomfort in my face, at which point he quickly said that he should be able to trust me and I'm one of his best friends. Wink wink. Which is not true at all, as I barely know this guy outside of a party environment. Recently, I saw an article that partial human remains were found in this exact forest, which is the reason I'm making this post. I'm not really looking for advice, and I don't really plan on reporting this because the headache would be too much if it was just a big lie. Man, now that is quite a story. Now, I get if your mom or your sister or your wife or whatever is getting followed by a guy going down the dark alleys, matching your movements, crossing the street with you, like, yeah, that would be terrifying. And yeah, show up, you and your bro, you gotta show up and do something about that. But killing and dismembering is a bit of an overreaction and could ruin your own life. You and your guy, you could definitely make sure that guy's not gonna mess with her again. You just intimidate, maybe rough him up a little bit, but gosh, killing him, that's a bit heavy. And also, what's the chance that it's an accident and he wasn't trying to follow? Obviously, if he's matching her movements perfectly, not likely, but could be an accident, and you wouldn't want to accidentally kill someone just because they're walking in the same direction as your ma. And then the top comment says, holy, this is way beyond just some druggy rambling at a party. The fact that remains actually turned up in the local forest he mentioned changes everything. You need to report this even if it's a massive headache. I get not wanting to deal with police questioning and all that mess, but someone's family is probably still wondering what happened to their loved one. Even if there's a chance he was just talking complete nonsense, the details matching up with the actual remains is too much of a coincidence to ignore. This is not something you should just sit on because it might be inconvenient. What if this guy does something like this again? And yeah, also in the heat of the moment, could have been exaggeration. The guy could have literally just been walking the same direction. Maybe his apartment was down the same sidewalk that his mom was walking. And, when you're scared, sometimes your mind blows things up out of proportion. Obviously, I would still say it's the right thing to show up, protect your mom, of course. But beyond that, everything else they did, way over the top. Thank you everybody who watched this video. A little darker than usual. Let me know if you liked it in the comments. Make sure to like and subscribe if you liked and want to subscribe. Thank you again so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.